Not gonna lie, when I made the Encanto video just for the sake of having something on the channel, I'd completely forgotten just how close this movie was. And frankly, the immaculate vibe of this movie was almost ruined for me by the train ride back home from the theater. God, why are New York commuters so obnoxious? Anyway, you know what it is. Broad thoughts, no spoilers. Ripping the band-aid off right now, immediately, wasting no time. Is it as good as the first film? No. Which is to say, I don't like it quite as much, but there's something that you've gotta understand about me. I'm someone for whom ending media installments on a cliffhanger will usually make it so all of my criticism or praises come with an asterisk. By which I mean, look, whenever I review Doctor Who episodes, I almost universally treat multi-part episodes as a single story, and I'm very much the same for movies. Unless your cliffhanger leads directly to some kind of massive time jump, which for this movie is literally not possible, then my brain's just not wired to treat it fully as its own thing. At that point, it goes beyond just being a sequel or an installment in a franchise that you know is ongoing like the MCU. Despite the title change partway through production, Across the Spiderverse is very much still part 1 of 2. So, by virtue of not being a complete story, I can't say it's better than the first film. I almost certainly will count Across and Beyond the Spider-Verse together as a masterpiece that surpasses the original, but by then the total package will have a leg up since it'll be thrice the original film's runtime. As it stands, what we have right now is half a masterpiece. Though on the subject of runtime, a completely neutral observation that I can make is that despite being so much longer, Across the Spider-Verse has a plot that feels kinda like less goes on than the first film. What I can say for sure, without going into spoilers at all, is that the film makes the extremely clever choice to be a dual protagonist story. Miles Morales and Gwen Stacy share main character duty this time, both getting arcs that are as close to fully formed as you can get in a story that's not finished yet. Both of these arcs are woven into each other, as well as the very multiverse concept from the jump. And because of that, the character work being done here feels just a little bit less grounded in reality, a little less applicable to me personally than Miles' circumstances in the first film. Miles still ultimately supplants Gwen as the audience point of view character, and all of the big narrative twists are the ones that he and only he is kept completely in the dark about. Many of those twists build directly on and retroactively inform the first film, as does the presence of the Spot as this movie's ostensible villain. Ostensible because for as much as he drives the plot, Jason Schwartzman practically disappears from the film's second half. Along with Jake Johnson as Peter B. Parker and Daniel Kaluuya as Hobie Brown, they make up a secondary cast that doesn't exactly feel underutilized, so much as they just don't have as much screen time as you might expect in a movie this long. It's all with the promise of bigger roles for these characters come the next film. Once the film reaches that second half, though, Oscar Isaac takes over as Miguel O'Hara, the intense, self-serious Spider-Man 2099, and the character who single-handedly ups the emotional stakes of the whole thing, in a way that's super compelling, but also feels just a bit too cute by half as far as baking fandom terminology and preconceptions into the text of the story. Meta-commentary on the nature and impact of fan culture has basically been the bread and butter of franchise storytelling for the last decade plus. And this movie feels like as explicit as you can get on that front without just being literally a movie about how the internet talks about Spider-Man as a fictional character and piece of modern mythology. If nothing else, I think it's funny that this movie is what will end up teaching the concept of canon to a whole generation of little kids. It's a little less than subtle in some aspects, but very, very clever in others. What I see being built to with this movie is a story that actively interrogates the widely accepted idea that death and pain and angst and loneliness are somehow fundamental to being Spider-Man. And man, does that idea excite me. It's a thematic idea that every Spider-Person in the film reflects differently, and you will absolutely catch me in 8 months doing another Spectrum storytelling video for the cast of this film the same way that I did for the original Doctor Strange. Go check out that video, by the way, it's one of my favorites. Aesthetically, the movie is just as gorgeous as the original, with its many art styles lending to drama, comedy, and action in equal measure. And speaking of the action, good lord, if these movies prove anything, it's one, that Spider-Man has the coolest power set of any superhero ever made, and two, that animation is the perfect medium for conveying that power set. Talking about the balance of tones, the first film went decently hard into action as both brutal drama and slapstick comedy, and the sequel only furthers and elevates that idea. There's a barn burner of an action chase sequence that's been heavily advertised and has altogether gotta be somewhere between 15 and 20 minutes long. It's nuts, and it's just a capper on a movie with at least 3 other instantly iconic set pieces that are varying degrees of funny and stressful, but all endlessly creative. Musically, I don't think this film has as many ear-grabbing licensed tracks as the original, but the score by Daniel Pemberton is its own musical masterwork, building on the original to suit the new movie's grander emotional scope. I don't know, I've not gone a fraction as deep as I could even in a non-spoiler video, but frankly I've got enough on my plate that it feels right to leave off there. If you're watching this, odds are you've already seen the movie, but this is definitely one that I recommend as strongly as the first film if you somehow haven't. If you have, let me know what you thought of the movie and this video in the comments. Like, subscribe, etc., etc. See you in the future.